Hey everybody, Riot Mort here, and thought I'd do something special, a little different today. We're going to do a year of review of TFT. We did a lot this year, it's pretty crazy, and I thought that would be really lame to just do it by myself. That'd be really awkward. So I invited two special guests with me. So first off, we've got to my left, TJ. Why don't you talk about your role on the team?
Hey everyone, I'm TJ or Riot GreenTeej. I'm the product lead for TFT. I help work with teams like design and everyone across the TFT organization to kind of make things that we think will be exciting for players from the game we make to the features we release.
Nice. And then to his left, we have Riot Wittrock, who some of you have met
Uh,
before, but if you haven't, what do you do?
I'm Wittrock. I'm a game designer. I work primarily on sets, so I led sets 1, 2, 3, 3.5. Currently working on set 5, but involved in all of our set content, champions, traits, set mechanics, that kind of stuff.
Nice, nice. Cool. So, holy crap, 2020, we made it. How you guys feeling?
That's great. This was such a cool year, like for TFT specifically. It's crazy to me to think about where we were at in Rise of the Elements at the beginning of the year and where we're at today. It just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, thinking back that even this year was one of the patches with the Rise of the Elements in it is just crazy to think about that. It's been a year and we've experienced three new sets or three sets throughout that entire year from set 2 to set 4.
Yeah.
So it's been crazy.
Yeah. Speaking of Rise of the Elements, so we're going to go through kind of like every patch and sort of where we are and what was going on at the team and how we were all feeling. So let's start right away with patch 10.1. So this was, we just got back and we released Leona and Karma, which was the last champions to be added to Rise of the Elements. And if I recall correctly, we were seeing at this point was like Rise of the Elements was struggling, new champions wasn't really bringing anyone back. We were starting to be really nervous about the sets model in general. So this is kind of a dark time for TFT. Does that sound about right?
It does.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Elements was not going great. It wasn't horrible or anything. I think people also exaggerate like exactly how much Elements fell off. But it was like, hey, we had all this excitement from launch. We're not doing as well. I think the thing that was countering this is we were actually so focused on Galaxies already. I mean, at this point, we were,
True.
I think, maybe a couple weeks away, maybe a month away from like really digging into playtests. So if anything, we're like, hey, we have an upcoming set that we're very excited by that we're working on. So
That's true.
Yeah,
That's
and
true.
one of the really big things I remember during this time was just mobile development. Like this was like the prime time. The team
True.
was a lot of the team was just focused on making mobile. At the same time, we were like writing down, and learning so many like what can we do better next time for set 3 from all the stuff that we did in set 2.
Yeah, that's a good point, TJ, because not a lot of people realize that like we were kind of split and like the people doing sets and live was actually like pretty small. A lot of the team was on mobile at this point, and we were like crunching like crazy to get that out.
the other good news was at this point we already had a lot of learnings from Elements, right? We were understanding what players weren't
Yeah.
liking. I remember talking to a lot of both the kind of pros and influencers because we were at All Stars.
Oh,
A
that's
month
true,
and
because we had
a
just got
month
off All
before
Stars.
this.
Yeah.
And so we had been talking to people, and we got great feedback. It was like, hey, here's the things that we think you did well with Elements, but here's the parts you don't like. I remember the focus was especially on spectacle and clarity, and
Yeah.
so cool. We knew that we had improvements we could make, and we're pushing all of those into Galaxies.
That's true.
Yeah.
Now on my screen you can't see it, TJ, but the Little Legends were also released in 10.1. And I don't know about you, but this might be my least favorite batch of Little Legends.
I wouldn't say it's my least favorite, but it's definitely one to definitely learn from. I remember when these came up, we were like, hey, let's make the legends that are inspired by the factions of Runeterra. And the thing that we learned after releasing them was like, players kind of want cool new things that don't actually tie the IP as much. So things that are like exciting, like, in space or Pool Party or Star Guardian.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are definitely on the bottom of the list for me, but I don't think they would be my least favorite.
All right, all right. Although it is funny that Witty does use the bird in every playtest, or a lot of our playtests.
It's got lasers that shoot out of its eyes. It's so cool. It's got one of my favorite emotes. Everything else about it's not good, but lasers.
Talker
out of
was
the
it.
eyes.
Yeah. MVP Talker.
One other fun fact I'm reminded of just looking at this patch
Mhm.
is and looking at Lunar is this was the origin for Moonlight. During the brainstorming for, Lunar, originally we had this idea of being able to star up at the beginning of combat and potentially doing 4-star stuff. We didn't quite figure out how we wanted to do it at this point, and then we decided we didn't want to release 3 champions. We wanted to do 2, so the whole idea kind of got shelved, but Lunar got kind of close to being modern day Moonlight. So.
Now we have to tell this story a bit. And by the way, if we take this long on every patch, we're going to kill ourselves here. But because there's the items to go over still too. But we have to tell this, Woody. We've been talking about the like Moonlight star level up system since before this. And I think pretty much the whole time I've been like, no, please God, let's never ever do it. And you and the rest of the team have definitely been like, but it's fun. And it's definitely been a fun thing. And I'm glad you finally convinced me, but we needed the right execution to get it done.
Yep, we had a lot of, the very first version was Guardian Angel stars you up when you revive. I think that went to PBE.
Yeah, it went to PBE.
Patch 9.15 or something, very early.
Yep.
Then we talked about it here. We talked about it on Lulu's spell for Galaxies.
That's right.
She'd wild growth somewhat, but instead that would start
their star level.
Yeah. So, and we probably had some other ones sprinkled in there, but I'm glad we finally got a version that made sense. So.
Yeah. So the other big one though was Ananda's first project, the item rework. We did a bunch of item rework in patch 10.1, so it was kind of a big deal. Last Whisper, which is still around, Titan's Resolve still around, Bramble Vest still around, Frozen Heart needs some adjustments. Iceborne Gauntlet was a bit of an oof. Ionic Spark still around, Quicksilver still around and dominating, Locket being good, Luden's Shiv. Hush was still around back then, can you believe it?
Hush.
Yeah. So some good items in there though, for sure. So
trying to make sense of items and kind of their place in the game, and I'll always say items were one of our least understood elements of the game after shipping, and so we were playing catch up on learning how to make good ones, how they should relate, like how they relate to sets, how stable versus changing they should be, that kind of stuff. So
Yep. All right, cool. Let's jump into patch 10.2. So at this point, patches are going to start being pretty light because, like you said, we're kind of in Galaxy spaces, and so it's like the live team, which, if I recall, wasn't really a team. We're trying to kind of doing what we had, but interestingly enough, there were some big system changes in here that, when you look back, it's like I forgot we even made these. But like small loot boxes used to be able to drop 2 to 4 gold, which was some pretty extreme variance. Full items used to drop quite a bit. You can no longer get 2 full item drops from the same PvE rounds. You used to be able to get two the same full item. But then also like PvE minions and monsters are immune to Zephyr. Remember when that used to be a thing?
Yep. Wait for the dragon to come back down.
Yep. This was also the first time we added chromatic tiers to synergies. So
I don't even remember why we did that. Like, it was a good idea, right? Like, it was very cool and gives players like a clearer piece of accomplishment. But I don't remember why we suddenly were like, let's add this whole extra visual treatment.
Yep. Yeah, this is cool. Yeah. And then also, this is when you got to finally pick your Little Legend and Arena selector that like T and the team had been working on.
Oh yeah, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Like that was the beginning of the year that we used to not have that. So.
Yep.
Yeah. A patch like this, these final few elements patches, they're very much. A lot of different people are contributing to the little pieces of this. Like, this is where we shipped Woodland, right? This is where we shipped Woodland 6.
Let's see. Yeah. Traits. Yep. Woodland 6. Yep.
Right? And that was like, we had a fun idea that we thought that we didn't get to in initial shipping, and so we said, put it in there. Let's give it a try. So.
Woodland was so great, by the way, because Woodland 6, I'd always hear the stories. It was either you hit it and you took 8th with it because it was terrible, or you hit it and you knew what you were doing and it was unbeatable. And it was kind of fun. Did you ever hit that, TJ?
Woodland 6? That required Lux back then, right?
Yeah, you had to have Woodland Lux specifically.
I think I hit it one time, because I got a super early Woodland Lux, and I was like, I gotta try it. It's new.
See, I remember I hit it twice, and both games I hit it, I won with it. And then I had so many people pinging me like, I keep hitting it and it does nothing and it's worthless. And I'm like, you have double the army. How is this worthless?
I do remember a lot of the community saying how worthless Woodland 6 was when it first came out.
Yeah.
But they were wrong.
One of my favorite patch notes, by the way, Karma is no longer 7'6".
That model was extremely tall. Too tall.
Yep.
Yeah, we put a good chunk of time into really trying to get the champions the right size compared to each other and feel good. Because it's not, I don't know if people notice this, it's not the same as SR. SR is much more, things are kind of all the same size-ish, so that they, work well gameplay relative to each other. So
it's always funny in our first playtest when those sizes are like way off too.
Yep.
All right, so patch 10.3, we're moving along. We're reaching the end here. Let's see. Krugs now have guaranteed to drop 2 items instead of 1 minimum. Remember when you'd have you do the first few rounds and Krugs and still have 2 items total? That was a little rough. Oh, this is when we did the spatulas no longer appear on the carousel. We took spatulas off the carousel.
Yes.
Because Blade Master Nocturne. Or
Blender every game. Because people would force it the first carousel. It would be like, oh, a spatula? Guess I'm going Blender.
Yep, I remember you just want to loose streak as fast as you can just to guarantee a spatula pickup during this patch or around this time. Or before this patch, actually.
Now I remember... go ahead. Go ahead.
This is one of those, it was a good change, even though we, partially reverted it because we learned a lot from it. We wanted to understand, how does the game feel if there are no spatulas in carousel, and if we could bring them back, how should we bring them back? So
yeah, I got a lot of crap for this change, by the way, from both my boss and I think Dax at the time. Were you snuck it in last minute, what are you doing? And I was like, look, we need this information. And it made the game better. It made the game a lot better at the time.
Yeah, I do agree. After thinking about it too, it's worse to have to rely on spatulas, but better if they come out more randomly so that you're not forcing things, because spatulas can be a very powerful item.
Yeah. We have it now where you can have the all spatula opening carousel, but it's a lot different when everyone has it versus that one person who did better APM now has a spatula.
Yeah.
Grats. Especially with mobile coming on the way, that was also going to be a little awkward, so.
Yep, need to pick the legend with the best hitbox.
Yeah. Which isn't true. Why?
Don't
Perpetuate that. What are you doing?
They all have the same hitbox, everyone. Just kidding. It's not.
God!
Those 3 we were talking about earlier. Talker and they have the best hitbox.
Go buy them.
And there go 100 pings back at my. Oh God. Let's see. I'm trying to look anything interesting. Annie got buffed. Yorick got buffed. Oh man, Yorick was a balanced nightmare though. Holy crap! That champ was light was unplayable without it, and then you'd hit it and you win. Hooray!
Yep.
Such a non-standard 4-cost carry. It was. I mean, he's had some moments.
He should have been a 5-cost.
But yes, I think this was one of the. I'd say Elements was the set that set 1 had some of this too, but we were still getting our footing on what prices made sense. For different types of abilities, right? What felt epic enough for a 5-cost was certainly not well defined. What was inappropriate at low cost, Zyra.
Oh God!
1-cost unit that adds
3 units to the freaking board
to the battlefield. Oh God! So yeah, this was the dark times.
Yeah,
that
the learning times.
Remember Master Yi with 1.1 attack speed?
Kaisa still had 1.25. I'm still trying to break that.
Kaisa was not balanced. Oh God, you're gonna make me ship a 2.0 at some point, aren't you?
Yeah, it's gonna be that's the whole champion. It's just the 2.0 attack speed.
The other thing I see here, by the way, is a reminder that Rek'Sai existed for 2 sets. That was my bane.
I liked this Rek'Sai infinitely more than.
Well, yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
I remember there was a time where Steel was good. Was it called Steel?
Yeah.
Is that the Rek'Sai? Yeah, Steel.
Yeah. Steel was real good. Especially Steel Predator, and you'd get the Kog'Maw backline, and then the Singed would carry you late game with the Morellos. Woof. Yep. All right, patch 10.4. There's a picture of Olaf here. That's always scary because Olaf was definitely an easy champion to balance. And in fact, you can even see here there's a B patch where we had to nerf Shadow. Oh, this is where we started doing the highlights. So the highlights here were kind of cool because that was something I'd been doing like on my Twitter on like a scratch pad. And so then Blake took that and finally like actually put it onto paper. But this is also, it's always funny to watch people's reactions because whenever they see like buff champion or nerf champion, they assume it's like 50% the power increase. This champ's gonna be broken. And you're like, no, it's like 50 HP, I swear. What's going you know?
Yeah, that was a good addition.
Yeah.
This was also the patch where we shipped one of the things players were asking for a lot back then, which was the knowing who you faced in your previous rounds in the stage
Oh,
tracker.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You can now mouse over the stage tracker to see the exact opponents you faced. Yeah. That was one of those ones that like a lot of like people had suggested to us, and definitely one of those ones I credit to player suggestion, where I kept coming back and I'm like, we really need to do this. We really need to do this, and we got the time. So yeah, that was a good one.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't that a revival of that feature?
Yep.
Because we had it very early with the old stage
with the old UI. Yep.
Then when we went to set 2, we needed to make room for the bigger board, right?
Yep.
We did a mixture of zooming out the camera, making
and shrinking
UI
the UI.
smaller.
Yep.
We also made the shop a little shorter and moved some stuff to the sides. So
Yep. Yeah, but this was bringing back the most requested feature. Yeah, you're right there. Poor Nocturne trying to get back to relevance without Blender. Zed attack speed 1.1. God, poor Zed. But this was the other one. Remember the Glacial rework I snuck in also?
Yep.
That was this patch also. So
yeah, I think this is when we started to get more sense of like just how fundamentally players want all the tiers of every trait to be viable, right? Because a lot of my early conversations around Glacial were like, yeah, we don't really want you to go for Glacial 6. It was kind of the answer. It was it's not going to be fun if everyone's stunned the whole time. This exists as like this flexible 2 to 4 piece. There just happens to be a 6 because you can reach it. So finding other places to push the power there.
Yeah. The other big one here was Poison going from 50% mana increase to 33%. I think this is one you and I debated a lot, Witty, especially knowing we were going into Mana Reaver into Galaxies. So that was another tough one.
Obviously, this number is stuck. This is the modern like mana Reave value on Shroud and Silas. Less powerful still. Poison was not just your next spell, but forever.
Oh God, that's right.
This was also
that's right.
And this was feeding into still I mean, this is a perennial conversation that we still don't have, I think, a perfect solve to. But we want counters to exist. We don't want hard counters to exist. But there's this football field in between hard counters and the whole spectrum. And so this was somewhere on that spectrum and where it should land. We were trying to figure out.
Yep. All right, patch 10.5, the final patch of Rise of the Elements. So I remember this was a pretty small patch because it was like, well, Galaxies is on PvE, so you know.
Yep.
Although I think it was not quite the same as when Fates went to PvE.
Yeah.
Because when Fates went to PvE, everyone went to PvE.
Yep.
They were like, we're ready, we're excited for a new set, we're out of here, right? For Galaxies, I don't remember it being... I mean, it's still a lot of people played Galaxies on PvE.
Well...
But we had burned them with a terrible PvE experience 4 months ago with Rise of the Elements. Health bars don't function.
Yep.
And there just wasn't as much hype around... like a new set, I think.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. We weren't even sure the sets model was going to work because I remember talking to Dax and like, if Galaxies wasn't successful, that might have been the end of sets. You know, like we were talking about like that might be it for sets. But yeah, generally the balance changes are all pretty small here. Although I have to highlight, because this one was hilarious, that 3-star Lux became 99,999. We added an extra 9. And I remember the exact reason was, because I can. It's the last patch. Who gives a shit?
Have fun. Yep.
Beats the one shot through triple Dragon's Claw or whatever.
So that was fun. The other thing I wanted to highlight here actually was this is when we did the Galaxies Invitational. which is important for a couple reasons. One, I think it was our last kind of like classic invitational where we just invited people and said, here's a bunch of money. Two, it was the last time I think a bunch of us ever saw each other face to face, because at the time I think, Witty, you and I were there. We got to be on camera.
Yes.
Which was our first time on camera too.
Yep.
And the competitors were on. The competitors were still on their computers though.
Yeah, I mean that event probably got very close to either being canceled or being like restructured because like it had gotten the pandemic was understood well enough and gotten worse enough that all the competitors stayed, which made sense, especially because they were international, right? We weren't going to be flying people in from all over the world.
Yeah.
But the whole crew and casters and you and I doing the analyst role, we were all in the studio, and that was. I think I maybe saw you on the next Monday, but pretty much this was the last time we saw each other.
Yeah. TJ, how was this from your experience? The invitational
during this time was the invitational was great. I think I was really excited about it as a player. During this time though, I was like heads down thinking about mobile because think about this patch was 2 weeks away from the mobile launch, and back then my role was more of like an analyst type role, and I was working with data and stuff. And we were just trying to make sure, what does success mean? What does it mean to have a good set model? What do we need to happen in the next 2 weeks to say we should continue doing this? And I remember another big conversation during this time was mid-sets. I remember in the past we talked about, this was actually 10-1 we started this conversation of, should we even do champion releases? Should we bundle them together? And during as Galaxies was releasing, we talked about this idea of what if we just did them all at once?
Yeah.
What if we just bundle them together and make an actual important moment out of it? And that's where the idea of a mid-set came up.
Yeah, that's right. You guys were the ones who originally came up with that idea. And I remember at first being a little negative, and then a week later coming back and being like, no, actually, I can see how this can work. Here we go. I had a conversation with Dax and was like, yep, let's do it. But yeah, you're right. You guys originated that idea, which we'll talk about in a bit too, because Witty had to tough that one out pretty bit.
Yeah. This starts to get to the dark time of a not too well staffed TFT team.
Yeah, a little bit of that, a little bit, which we'll talk about. But
just my one other memory leading up to this patch was TFT sets, especially towards the end, there was a lot of bug fixing to do. And so I remember this, we went to PBE and there was still tons of bugs. We had Misfortune ults hitting people on different boards. We had 5 or 6 champions double scaling with spell power.
Oh god, the double scaling spell power one is always so hard to capture too, because you're the champion seems fine, the numbers seem fine. Why are they destroying the entire enemy? Oh, they had a single death cap. Whee! Now I'm forming a memory. We went and did the invitational, and then we came back and I had one bug that I fixed on that Monday in the office before we went live that we micro patched into the live set. So the invitational was playing with this bug, which was Valkyrie was capable of double critting with Jeweled Gauntlet. Very, very powerful. Which is again hilarious, and I can say this because it's been revealed on Twitter, but Executioner had the exact same bug. We just fixed the bug again.
Yep, we refactored the way the crit flow works and we created the bug.
There's something on sustainability here. I'm sure TJ can lecture us on, but cool. So at this point, like I said, Rise of the Elements is on its way out, and we're last chance at sets. Otherwise, sets are gonna be dead. And then fast forward to 10-6, bam! Galaxies is here. TJ, how'd it do?
Amazing. Honestly, we set a bar that we thought was pretty optimistic, and it just blew the bar away. Galaxies brought us back to the original release of TFT, and it was the fundamental moment when we knew okay, TFT has legs. We can continue this sets model, and we can continue to do this, and if we excite players enough, just like we do with Galaxies, we can find repeat success here. So it was exciting for us to I just remember sitting there on day 1 of Galaxies, day 2, day 3, looking at the charts, being okay, please, just go up to the right, just go up to the right, and it just kept going. It was crazy.
Nice. So there's a bunch to talk about here. Woody, did you have something?
I was gonna say I don't have as strong of memories around how exciting Galaxies was, probably for a few reasons. So at this point, we're all working from home too, and we're figuring out how the heck to.
Yeah, we'd only been working from home 3 days, 4 days.
Yep. Yep. So we're trying to figure out how to keep working, right? Because we got even more bugs to fix. We have to start thinking about mid-set. We have like stuff that's just not working on live that we're talking about reworking. So all that's flooding in. And I don't know. Maybe this is on me, but I was like, hey, I was never even thinking about failing, right? Like, I didn't have it as much in my head of, like, this is make or break.
You didn't have time to.
Yeah, we're going to make the best set. It's going to be in the time that we have, and we're going to see how it does. I also wasn't staring at the numbers every day, though, so.
I mean, that's kind of my job as your lead, too, is to, like, shield you from that and be like, look, until we're failing, we're not failing. Keep going like we're not failing. Like, because that's one of the worst things a lead can do is, like, oh, let's plan for 5 contingencies, and you should all worry about... No. It's this plan until it's not. Otherwise, shut the hell up. So, okay, so we're like you said, we're working from home, and there's a bunch to talk about here. I could go into like a bunch of details on all the specific changes, but there's a couple I want to touch on. First was the mechanic didn't launch with the set, which was crazy, but like we didn't have a choice. We were kind of behind the gun. So it was like, we're going to wait a patch. And it was a lot of like the presentation and the gameplay. So we just had to wait one patch. That was weird.
Yep, we had a like half finished version that the Invitational played on, but it was not like ready to have live players play on it.
Yeah, which we'll talk about once it did launch, because there was some cool stuff there. All right, bunch of system changes, bunch of stuff. Like I said, we'd be here all day if we talked about it all. Here's what I wanted to talk about, though, because Witty, this was another one that kind of shows how much extra time you put in to try to fix problems. There was the champion movement system. This was when you shipped that.
Yeah, this was... this movement speed thing we never even talked about very much. It looks weird, right? Like, why are we making champions move slower? And it was a mixture of trying to get more clarity, right? Like, things just moving fast on your screen is like distracting and hard to follow. Yeah. And we have things that can miss in the game too. And so how do things miss? Champions move out of the way. How to make things miss less? Champions move slower. But we had a bunch of other stuff here too. Yeah, the smoother walking from hex to hex. We still have even more work to do here, but took a crack at that. Less randomness in the movement, right? With this melee get to be the first to move so that they establish a battle line and then the ranged champions get in position.
Yeah.
Okay. Not chasing across the world. I don't know. I like
Yeah, there's a bunch more here. Mana being 10 per auto instead of 8 at 1 star, which was always infuriating.
Yep, that's a good change.
The invention of Mortdog carousels. And I'm going to call them that because we didn't call them that. We would never call them that. But players certainly had feelings about the Mortdog carousels. TJ, any thoughts there?
You mean the Galaxies? This was Galaxies.
No! Right? They did. Oh, God, you're right. They did think that sometimes. They did.
This was like the full item carousel. Sometimes you get all belts. Sometimes, the spatulas would just appear.
All Zephyrs.
I thought it was fun, but I can understand why sometimes it would be frustrating to get all belts, Those are the times where I was like, God damn it, dog.
I still think if there's a way that, like, at the beginning of the game, you knew what every carousel was going to be, and you could plan around that, it could still work. But the amount of UI required for that, not realistic at all.
The thing that usually hurt here was when we were taking something that was otherwise a comeback mechanic and making it not a comeback mechanic. I mean, the other thing too is the full item ones in particular. We learned this lesson hard in Galaxies through Galactic Armory and this, but the taking away agency really messed with us here. Where it's like, I used to get a component that had 7 choices. Now I get a full item that has 0 choices. Yay! Except not, Lots of other small ones here. Okay, there's a patch note here I'm laughing at, Witty, because obviously we had to fix it later, but grievous wounds down to 50% healing reduction. So obviously this is not true. I don't even know if I'm going to remember,
Remember it was the double? It was the double problem.
Yeah, but it still didn't completely fix this issue? I don't know.
Well, because we set it to 50, which is correct, but it was double doing it, and the green text wasn't correct, so we just oopsed. Disarm no longer prevents spell casts because holy shit, that was annoying.
Yep.
Bug fix, champions are now once again larger at 3-star compared to 2-star.
I this was months. I remember doing this like a few months before releasing, and after fixing it internally, was tearing my hair out that this was broken on live because we couldn't fix it with elements because it required a bunch of custom resizing to make everything look right. We're just like, we're not going to do that. We'll just fix it in Galaxies. But I was so sad about this that like seeing your 3-star champion be big and epic and golden is like really fun, and we had broken it at some point.
Yep. All right, like I said, we'd go forever if I talk too long, but there's one more thing we have to touch on, and TJ, this is more your camp. This is when we released our first battle pass, and now TFT was definitely like, we monetize and we make some money, but we're certainly not like anywhere near as good at monetizing our players as like other games in the Riot wheelhouse or other things. So we released the pass. Any thoughts there, TJ?
The pass was, honestly, one of the I wouldn't say best, but one of the better decisions we've made on TFT because players were super excited about it. And they showed by one, buying the pass, but also when they talked about it, it was like super generous. When we made the thing, we were like, we want to make sure players get tons of value, more than what the $10 is that they're going to pay or whatever that equates to other regions. And we almost didn't ship the pass. I remember because we actually didn't ship mobile store. And pass was on the wire to also not ship because all the like ways that you could spend money on the mobile app on a PC were coming in really hot. But we made a decision to say like pass is the most important of all of them. So let's try and make sure we get that in. And it was a great decision because it gave players like something to kind of strive for, both for free and for $10.
Yeah. Now I can't say the numbers, but I know we had a goal of getting X% of players to engage with this thing, and I hear we blew that goal way the hell out of the water.
Oh yeah, across Riot, like we won't say exact numbers, but this is like one of the best performing passes at the company. So we're really excited, and of course, there's tons of other ways we want to improve that from now into the future. But it was a very great start.
Yeah, they're really, really happy, and so like we're going to talk about this as we go on, but like things were looking really good here, but we're also panicking because we're kind of working from home. So, and I think Witty, you probably talked with me the most about this because it was like, what? Well, we might be back at the office in like what, a month? Maybe 2?
Yep. We were wildly incorrect as to when we were going to get back in the office. I remember at some point we started to have the conversation of this could last long enough that we won't even be back into the office when Set 4 development starts, which was scary to us. Turns out we would do the whole thing. And still.
Okay. So because you brought that up, before we move on to the next patch, and I promise we won't take this long with every patch, otherwise we'll be here till... we have not started Set 4 development at this point.
Yeah, definitely not.
So Set 4 is 6 months away. We haven't started. Have we started Set 3.5 at this point?
No.
Nope. Nope. Saying that out loud, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I know how we did it, so it doesn't shock me. I'm sure TJ is like writhing inside.
It wasn't easy as we got closer to launching these two, but I'm sure we'll talk more about that as we.
All right. Let's move on to the next patch. All right, patch 10.7. So Galaxies has been out. A bunch of things to rebalance because, of course, there is. We just launched. Galaxies launched. Galaxies is a mechanic. Now, the thing to tell about Galaxies is Galaxies was not our original pitch for Galaxies. The original pitch was like this whole day-night cycle thing. You can read about it in one of Meddler's posts. But TLDR, it didn't work well. And so in the I don't even remember, what was it, like 4 weeks before we launched? 5 weeks before we launched? We basically had to last hurrah a different thing. And someone came up with Galaxies, which was just like, it could be anything! And we shipped Galaxies, and we shipped them with our first 3. Nicoverse, Lilac, and Medium Legends. So, any thoughts on Galaxies, TJ?
I thought it was a great mechanic, and it did start to give us a lot of learnings as to what makes sets sustainable throughout the entire 6-month process. We need to have something that's fresh with each game that you play, at least to some extent. But I think the biggest learning is mid-set. I think we saw when the Galaxy mechanic released that players even came back to play more Galaxies even after the release. So these type of systems can be a huge benefit to players engaging with the game.
Yeah. What do you any thoughts on Galaxies?
Yeah, its blessing and its curse was the it could be anything part, right? We had a huge list of ideas that we wanted to try, way more than we could actually try with our timeline internally. We didn't have a great sense of like how much complexity could you pack into one of these things that would feel good. Should that go up over time? So that's why I think the takeaway of Galaxies was general idea good, but name me a galaxy and I'll tell you whether or not it was good or not. And
Yep.
there's a big spectrum there.
So I mean, let's name the real quick. Nicoverse, good or bad, real quick.
I like Nicoverse. It's got a little, it's simple enough, and the choices aren't always obvious.
I'd call it a great for me. I think it was one of
Okay.
the better Galaxies.
Okay. I actually call it bad for me. 2 Nicos is a lot. That's a lot of power.
Yep, it is.
So, all right, Lilac.
Forecasts are not designed to be opened with. They're just not.
Especially, remember Kale? Opening with Kale?
Yep. Yep. Irelia or Kale were also just, yeah.
Yep.
Because you get Cyber early, it was crazy.
Yep. And then Medium Legends.
Medium was smaller.
Plus 25 health. Plus 25 health. So you started with 125.
I'm gonna go thumbs down. It was in the middle for me, but I'm gonna say thumbs down. Because the game length was the part that made me not too happy.
Game length
about
was
Medium
rough.
Legends.
I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Witty?
Yeah, I was. I'm average on this. I think my downside was it didn't affect the game a ton, which felt like a lame use of a galaxy to me.
Yep. So, okay, we'll go over each galaxy, but yeah, like you said, there's a lot to learn from galaxies, and the thing I'll talk about though is that I feel like as many things we've done up until now, it's like we needed to do it to learn about the game because we're still exploring a genre that didn't really exist. And for all the flaws of Galaxies and all the bad ones we're going to talk about, I think we came out the other side knowing so much more about this genre. And so for that reason, I'm glad we did it.
100%.
Oh yeah.
So, all right, balance, blah, 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 the bunch of balances, because everyone was like, it's the Rebels set. Rebels are too strong, items.
Be Rebel.
Oh, here you go. Champions now celebrate when they are victorious in combat.
Oh yeah. I at one point was looking at it. We had been having these dance animations that are in League, obviously, set up for all of our champions, but they were just not scripted to ever play. So I'm like, let's have them play. So this was one of those, like, it was nice to, for better or for worse. This patch I remember as it wasn't. I didn't have something I needed to like explicitly deliver because we had not started on the mid set yet, and so I just got to spend this patch bug fixing and doing change like this, and this had like reworks to what Mana Reaver and Darkstar, something like that.
Not yet, I don't think. Or did we ship the first Darkstar one at this point?
We might. We reworked it. Twice.
You're right. Yeah, rework Darkstar and rework Mana Reaver. Yep, you're right.
Yep.
So yeah, because those didn't launch quite in a good spot. You're right.
Yep, and they were small reworks at the end of the day, but
yeah, there is no longer a 4-piece.
Yep.
Cool. All right, so 10-7's moving on, and like I said, we haven't started 3.5 or 4 yet.
Oh, definitely not 4. And 3.5, no. I think this upcoming patch, maybe we're starting to talk about it. I think is this patch.
Yeah. Because that was the other thing, too, about Galaxies, is that because we had to keep making them, that was taking some of our development resources also, so that was a little rough.
Yeah.
In a time where we had so little.
Yeah, I remember many conversations of the Galaxy we shipped was just really based off of how much time do we have this patch? Especially towards the end of the set.
Oh, well, yeah, the end we'll get to. Yeah. Okay, so 10-8. We're on 10-8 now. Let's see. A lot of Darkstar nerfing and Shaco nerfing and Darkstar being oppressive and Syndra being oppressive. Oh, is this the one where... Okay, I remember this patch, and TJ, you're going to laugh at this. Maybe it wasn't you. Maybe it was more Dax. This was the patch where we changed Syndra. I'm going to scroll down and double check. Syndra, Mana... Yeah, or Syndra range. Okay, maybe that's not this patch then. There's a patch where we buffed... Because it was the vacation patch. The time where I went on vacation. Yeah.
Yeah. That one's later in the future.
Okay, that's later? All right, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, this is where... Okay, so we introduced Xerath here. So the big thing here was, why did we add a champion when we said we weren't going to add champions anymore?
Yeah, we made a whole big deal about how we weren't adding champions, and so this was Giovanni. So the first thing was, as a team, we were like, we want another 5 cost to dilute the pool. We're continuing, I think, what panned out pretty well, which is 5 cost should be rare and special and not core to builds. So we want a certain number of them, and then it was, what can we add in? Basically 2 weeks of development, maybe 3 weeks is about how long Giovanni got to work on this.
No, you're forgetting the important part of the story.
I probably will.
Okay. Do you remember what skin line, like what event was happening right before this? See, TJ's nodding. TJ knows what I'm talking about.
I don't remember.
Star Guardian Urgot.
Oh, of course. Yes.
So we had come in with a plan. Star Guardian Urgot was going to get announced for April Fool's Day. And we couldn't do it with Galaxy's launch because they didn't want us going before April Fool's, before the skin was revealed. And we're like, Star Guardian Urgot would be so good to use. So we were going to launch the next patch to be with the set. The problem is, as we built Star Guardian Urgot, there were 2 main issues we found. One was that Urgot was just like not fun. We just couldn't quite get him with the right traits, right stuff that we were happy with. And 2, everyone who played Star Guardian Urgot that like liked Star Guardians was like, this is making Star Guardian less fun for me. It's like this ugly monstrosity versus my army of sailor girls. And we couldn't ignore that feedback.
Yeah, that joke is fun for the people who like that joke, but it's very much so opt-in. And so to take a very cool thematic in Star Guardian and force the joke upon you, if that didn't feel right.
Yeah. So because that didn't work, then Giovanni had to like panic get something out in 2 weeks.
Yes.
And it was like, Xerath, I guess?
Yep. I think this is maybe one of the fastest like individual champions development that's ever happened, possibly.
Yeah. But again, for the turnaround that he had to do, it was like, he did a good job. And honestly, Xerath didn't end up that bad. The only flaw being, of course, that like, did you ever play him outside of Darkstar? Hell no.
Yeah, he was suffering. A few of our champions were already in this camp, but we tried to resolve these with 3.5. But you play him in the Darkstar build and not many other places.
All right, new Galaxies to thumbs up. Ready? Trade sector. Players get 1 free reroll each round.
Yeah, this is like, it's madness, but it's so simple and feels very different. So awesome.
There's a part of this I think is actually should be core to TFT. If you told me in stage 2 everyone got a free reroll, I'd be like, the game's probably better for it. I think this one's really good.
Yeah.
So, Super Dense Galaxy. Upon reaching level 5, players receive a free Force of Nature.
Not this version.
Yeah, not really? This version. This version was rough because what ended up happening was people would power level to 5, and then if you didn't do that, it was like 6 versus 4, and you would take 6 units worth of damage, and player damage went through the roof, and so it was like, ow. It was a very, very toxic experience.
Yep, and we tweaked this to something correct, but it was just... Yeah. It's so powerful to get that extra unit, and not actually that expensive to do, so... Everyone who knew what they were doing did it, and those who didn't know what they were doing got wrecked for it.
I completely forgot that the first part was level-based.
Yeah, it was real bad. This is also where we added 9 Blade Master, 9 Darkstar, 6 Infiltrator, 6 Protector, 9 Rebel, 8 Sorcerer. I continue to think those are really fun. They're actually less fun in Fates, which we'll talk about later, but like I think they were really fun in Galaxies to have those chase traits. Cool. Bunch of balance changes, bunch of item changes. Shields in overtime now have 66% reduced effective healing. Bunch of bug fixes.
There was poppies winning overtimes that just did not feel right.
Yeah. And a bunch of mobile stuff. So at this point, by the way, so we've gone 2 patches. TJ, is there anything you wanted to bring up about mobile at this point? Because like we're 2 months. Like, how's mobile doing at this point?
Honestly, if I remember correctly back then, like, still really buggy. Like, we were spending a lot of time just, like, we didn't think it would be this much work, but it ended up being a lot of work of people just, like, wanting to make sure the mobile experience was as good as we could make it. And so a lot of the team's time was still spent there during this time.
Now, at least we were all in the office together for the... Oh, wait. Oh, wait.
Yeah, it made it way more difficult, but the team did a great job. We pulled through. But yeah, it was interesting having to like release and maintain a mobile game all from the seats, literally
Yeah.
right here from our homes.
Yeah, that was rough. Okay, so at this point, I think at this point, Giovanni has definitely been like, okay, time to go start working on set 4. I think we're about at that, and I think you're starting to work on 3.5.
Yep. We're taking our first real bite at trying to both parallelize and get ahead of things, and now we have, I'd say, the most formalized version of a live pod that we've had as well.
Right, which was me and Static, and was that it?
That was it.
That was it? Yeah, all right. So 2 people, got it. Cool. Okay, now keep in mind, so it's 10.8, and you're starting to work on 3.5, which launches in 8 weeks. 4 patches.
Yep.
Cool.
Sounds doable.
Well, at least you had a lot of help, though, right? Because who else was helping you at the time?
Nope. We had no one. I mean, we just didn't have someone else to be working on this, at least for the kickoff, and so the whole paper initial design and most of the initial implementation was a fun solo project.
Yeah, because I mean, if I remember right, like you said, we had 2 people on live. We had you on 3.5, Giovanni on 4, B-Salve on Galaxies, and then like Linda helping with bugs and various tech issues and starting to build stuff. And that was like the design team, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Ananda was working on other like future-facing
Stuff.
projects. I don't know.
Yep. Stuff. Yeah, because that's the thing. There's also things that we just don't release that we can't even talk about too. So yeah. Okay, let's keep moving. 10.9. Looks like a big ass patch is what I'll say. A lot of buffs and nerfs and reworks and adjustments. But we did ship arenas. TJ, any thoughts on these arenas?
Honestly, these are actually still some of my favorite arenas. But the biggest thing that we actually learned here was the timing is so important on when you ship arenas.
Yeah.
Like putting them more closer to mid sets or sets, it just is that much more valuable. But these arenas, like players loved them. The designs of them were amazing, and our team did an amazing job. Like
I love the
improvement that they were
Yasuo
making.
one.
Yeah, it was crazy because if you think back, like the first arena we made was Freljord, and no offense to Freljord, but like the difference between Freljord and this is so drastic.
Yeah. Yep. Nice. Bunch of system changes. Did I miss the Galaxies? Nope. There's a couple of Galaxies. Sorry, I'm scrolling through here. A lot of balance changes. Holy crap. There's a lot of balance changes.
Well, we're trying to break up how linear the game feels
right. Because everyone was playing 6 this, 6 this, 6 this. That's right. That's right.
And this is part of swinging, going back to elements for just a second, one of the problems we felt with elements was the 6s weren't good. It was and for a newer player, that's like shocking and confusing, right?
Yep.
Like, you're telling me if I don't just collect my big army, that it's like gonna be a powerful thing. So baked into Galaxy's design was lots of 6 pieces. There should be relatively easy to play, good interconnectivity, all those things. But we went too far for especially players at this point. They're a month and a half in. It's like, I want more creativity. I want more options in my builds.
Yeah, the same units every comp. That's right. I remember that. Why is it not listing the Galaxies here? I know there's Galaxies in here. Oh, and here we go. New Galaxies. Okay, Treasure Trove. Every minion and monster in the game drops a loot orb. Good or bad? Thumbs up with it?
Good. This is the kind of Galaxy
I you hate this, though.
1% of games, right? Like,
right.
I think seeing this type of thing a lot is actually pretty flat. You have a lot of money. Ultimately, that sometimes creates less decisions, right? Like, if I can buy everything, I have no choice. And it fights against our own philosophies, right? We're like, 5 costs get to be super powerful and special because they're rare and hard to 2-star. Well, when they're not rare and hard to 2-star, we start to be like, do we have to nerf all the 5 costs?
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
That's
true.
What do we have to do? So that's why I have some troubles with an effect like this. 1% of games, go for it, but seeing it a lot scares me.
Yeah, you still believe our economy's too inflated, so.
Yep. I would love to have a little less money, a little less.
All right, and Star Cluster. This is all 1, 2, and 3 class champions on carousels are 2 stars.
I like this one a lot, actually. Surprisingly, like it felt like a really fun power spike for a lot of players. There were, I think, cases though where you would have an item and an amazing unit with the item on that unit that was just like so good and would feel bad if you didn't get it. But for the most part, getting a 2-star champ made the decision interesting. Do you go for an item or do you go for the champion?
Yeah, there was a change that was made. I think it was a little later. I don't remember if it launched with this, where the carousels were all the same champions. I think we did that later. Am I crazy?
I don't remember that. Maybe we added some more. My general memory of this is the type of project that would have greatly benefited from some more time.
Yes.
Right? The way to do this right is a more pseudo RNG control, like have special drop tables for exactly what can show up at what stage, how the units and items are distributed. Right? You could make this a really good experience.
Yeah.
We just did not have the time to do that.
Yeah, because I think a great example is like when you're on the like 4th carousel and there's like a 5 and a 4 cost unit, but then also the 1 and 2s were 2-star. That's a cool experience. But when it's like the 3rd carousel and 7th place gets a free 2-star 3 cost, that's definitely a little off. So
2-star Jace. That was real strong.
Yeah, that was very strong. You're not wrong. Okay. Oh, this is also where players can no longer open loot orbs if their item bench is full, because you used to be able to delete your items. Remember that?
Yeah, and we were doing this. There was one Galaxy we were testing where we're like, we really need to do this. I can't even remember which one it was.
I mean, it was probably a bunch of them, to be honest, but...
Yeah, I thought there was one. Maybe it was Armory was coming up or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it could have been.
Yeah,
but
Galaxies, and we were giving away more stuff, so this made sense to... It was a great change.
No longer deleting, especially now in like a Fortune world. Could you imagine Fortune with this shit?
Yeah.
11 loss streak, but I deleted half my items because I'm an idiot. Remember, what was it? There was that Scara clip I'll always remember where he like deleted his blue buff, and it was like the saddest, most depressing thing.
Yeah, I actually remember a lot of people on the team didn't know this could happen during this time. I vividly remember being in a stand-up meeting, and they're like, "Wait, items can be deleted?" And then everyone's like, "Really?"
Oh, yeah.
Well, it wasn't presented to the player at all, right? Like your item would literally disappear. You wouldn't even get like a warning or an error message that was like, not good.
They just disappear.
All right, so now we're on patch 10.10, if I'm doing my math right. Yep, we're on patch 10.10. And so now we're knee-deep in 3.5, trying because it's like 4 weeks away, 2 weeks from PB. Like, from what I recall, you were crunching. Yep. We had to throw B-Salve and Static at you to help.
Yep, right around. Point. I don't remember exactly when, but in this time.
Sometime around this time, which means Live Pod is now me again. And Giovanni is still in Fate's world by himself, which was really bad also because working on a set by yourself in isolation is also like gross.
Yep.
But yeah, so otherwise because of that, it's kind of a small patch. This is the first version of Galactic Armory. All players start with the same 2 full items, which was awful. The amount of games where it was like, oh, there's a red buff. Guess we're all going this. Guess we're all going Jinx. Blaster comps. Like, oh, that was bad. But this is a great example of what you were talking about, where it was like the amount of people available equaled the quality of the Galaxy. So, little rough there. Other than that, nothing major jumping out at me on the patch size.
Yeah, this is where I have to start looking at patch notes too, because my memory, we were just so focused on 3.5 at this point that I was not thinking about live very much.
Right. So what was going like? Because you had some struggles on 3.5. Like, what were we doing at this point?
Yeah, I mean, at this point we're past the point of. I think the part that went the smoothest out of the 0.5 that we underappreciate is exactly kind of what we wanted to do in terms of size, right? We're like, how many? Because those are big questions. How many champions should we do? How many traits? Should it be new traits? Should it be reprint champions? How should should we be removing the most problem? Like at this point, everyone's like let's remove mech, and I'm like, I don't think that's how we should be approaching mid sets. Like, just because something's not working perfectly doesn't mean immediately delete it, right?
Oh
Those
god,
kind
I
of
forgot
things.
about the whole like mech rework, mini rework that we had to do too.
Yep.
Jesus. Oh god, that was the spreadsheets. God damn it.
Yep. But we had some upside, right? We had mostly champion designs that were people were getting excited by. Traits was struggling a little bit more. We did a lot of versions of Astro. We did a lot of versions of Battlecast.
Yeah, I remember Astro and Battlecast took a bit. Teemo also took a bit. Teemo went through a lot of iterations.
Mm-hmm.
I remember some late nights with you just like, what if it's this? What if it's this? And just like really trying to get it out.
Yep.
But somehow we hit it at the end. So
yeah.
Real quick before we move on, I forgot. This is where we fixed Super Dense Galaxy. So then Super Dense became good. And then also where you could use a Nico when there were no longer ones in the pool. Or no, sorry, this one it tells you a message. We haven't fixed it yet, but we at least gave you a message.
Yep.
So, okay. 10-11, we're now one patch away from mid-set, and it's on PvE. So, good things here. And you can tell from the patch size it's really small. But we introduced one of everyone's favorite Galaxies, Little Legends. And by one of everyone's favorites, I'm obviously kidding, because I think it was one of the worst. Players hated this one.
Yep.
Which is funny, because it didn't actually do that much negative for the game, but my god, they hated it.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that stood out to me for Little Legends was that it changed slightly your expectations for the game length, so you would be so surprised when it was over for you.
Yeah.
Versus like the Medium Legends, you had more time, so it was actually, you got to the point that you're used to, and like, wow, I have so much more health. But Little Legends would sneak up on you.
Well, that's the thing. It made it feel like if you had a bad early game, that was just like, it felt insurmountable. So,
yeah, game pacing is very sensitive, and doing it in the most explicit way, which is everyone has less health, makes it feel extra bad.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yep. All right, 10-12, we made it. Galaxies mid-set. Lot to go over here. So first off, we added some new Little Legends, which I think were better than the last batch we talked about, but still kind of a rough batch, if I recall here, because of the thematic miss, I think was the big learning here, right, TJ?
Yeah, thematic was a big one here. I think the real winner of this series actually was the Rainbow Unicorn. So we released like a unicorn, but also did a Rainbow Unicorn. Players really loved it, but the other two, we started to learn more and more with each release.
Gotcha. Did another Galaxy Pass, which was good, and again, we saw a lot of players really engage with this again, so we're really happy with that. So that was good. This is also, TJ, when, if I recall, you really joined the team in your current role. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was being onboarded during this time by Dax, like learning what it means to be a product lead and learning what I need to take on responsibility for. I didn't do the best job at first, that's for sure. But it was a really fun time, and it was also crazy to be doing this during the mid-set, because I was like, what the fuck? Like, everyone is like short on time, short on help, and we were just like trying to move resources around to make sure we could do this like as comfortably as possible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least we were all there in person to help you. Oh, good. I'm gonna make that joke like 5 more times. I'm just throwing that out there.
It's too real, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So many of these launches, I mean, I still feel this today. It's not the same as being in person. So even these moments that should have been like major celebrations, like Galaxy's launch or like our first, new Formula mid-set, like we never really had that time to appreciate what had just happened.
Yeah, it's true, and it really kind of sucks, to be honest. The ability to just walk over and be like, "Hey, great job, we did it," and just like instead we just get these awkward Zoom calls. So, ugh. All right, well, on a more positive note, we launched mid-set, Astro, Battlecast, Paragon. I think Astro actually turned out pretty well, and the one I have to commend you on, especially, Witty, is Bard. Because from the time you wrote that on paper, I remember my exact reaction. I read Bard, and I went, "You're out of your goddamn mind. Let's do it."
Yep. Let's give it a try. It was a recycled pitch from set one of the. Because I remember I remember doing a little roadmap of set 1 drip champions before I started working on set 2, and at the very end of that roadmap was a 3-cost version of Zillion, who I don't remember if it was exactly this, but it was very close. But I saw that Bard, but I kind of looked at that Bard skin, which we knew we wanted to do Astra, because these were the new skins. These skins were coming out. It's like, cool, obviously we're going to do Astra. What are we going to do with it? We have to do Bard. And that was a problem, because we had tried Bard twice.
Oh, yeah, with the ults and, yeah.
And we're like, Bard, is he just going to cast his Q? Like, I don't know. And honestly, a lot of the inspiration for this was I saw the meeps on that skin, the adorably cute little wiggly aliens. I'm like, I want to get those into the game. What if I put them on your bench? Why are they on your bench? Like, so it was very try to get wiggly green aliens into the game.
Nice. All right, let's see here. Nautilus, fine. Bard, I already told you how good he did. Gnar came back, and I think Gnar was also our first, like, hey, reprints coming back is cool, but also power creep?
Yeah, we keep having these like awkward misses where we had something in set 1 where we're like, wow, that was such a cool champion in this big moment, and then when we reprint them, it's like not as exciting. And some of that's just they're coming back. You've seen it before, but it's also game has been power creeped. Bigger board always does weird things.
Yeah,
to spells like
bigger
this,
board.
I have to point out.
Teemo, I remember, again, Teemo, you and I worked on a lot because there were some rough iterations, but end result turned out pretty good. So
yeah, I feel okay about Teemo. This could have been much worse.
Yep. Alawi's a 1 cost. It's Alawi. Nocturne's a 1 cost. Certainly a downgrade from Element's Nocturne, but like it did its job. Kog'Maw turned out pretty fun.
Yep. It's a cool effect.
Yeah, Cassiopeia was my favorite champ of this, personally. I loved blue buff Cassiopeia.
Yep.
Victor, Urgot. Let's talk about Urgot.
So Urgot has been revived. I mean, we had some already pieces of having worked on Star Guardian Urgot. We kind of had this like, okay, it's 5 costs. He probably uses his R, but like doesn't have the fear component exactly how it works. And but yeah, we stuck with this like, hey, 5 costs should be not significantly tied to their traits and should have sharp outputs that you consider in many comps. So we went with kind of the ultimate tank buster. This is Urgot's gonna kill you. But we messed up the positioning game on ship, and still probably should have had some kind of like variable lever that is like, no, like a really tanky unit takes longer to grind up than a squishier one, just so it's not as sharp of an experience. But
I also think a set where mech existed, having Urgot in it was also a little rough. So, all right, I'll keep going. Janna, we could talk about forever. Some pros and cons there. That trait came in hot and was not great.
Yep.
So, Riven, Static did a great job with Riven. That was another one that I think was looking really bad until it wasn't, and then it was awesome.
Yeah, we end up with a very cool spell, still with extremely awkward like positioning in the trait structure, which is my
Chrono.
fault.
Chrono.
I put up the impossible task of we must replace a Kale with another 4-cost AP Blade Master, and it must be Riven, because it's like one of our only options in terms of skins to replace Chrono, because we have to. It was impossible requirements, and we did a
pretty good job. And then Vayne was kind of fun, although aggro drops, I'm still going to keep lecturing you that we should just stop doing aggro drops.
Yeah, they're just broken.
They're just broken.
Where my stance is, like, I see a pile of bugs and something we got to fix or not do.
And Zed, yada, yada, yada. There's so much we could go over. Okay, so this was one cool thing, though, here. Galaxies, this is where we said one more Galaxy per patch for the rest, and we're going to take one away. And this allowed us to, like, get rid of some of the crap, while also adding some new stuff. But what this also meant is, like, anything we added from here on out, we were kind of stuck with, and there's some misses coming up we'll talk about. So, bunch of balance, okay, mech rework. Oh, that mech rework. Do you remember why we had to do the mech rework? Because I don't even. All I remember is I was in spreadsheets for like a week straight trying to get this right.
Well, I think we were hitting because there's this whole little arc of mech's life, which is very, very early in pre-ship. I was constantly getting feedback that this trait sucks. Why would I ever want 3 units to turn into 1?
That's right.
And my response was always, well, what if we just made the 1 unit insanely powerful? We can bribe you eventually to want that unit, right? Plus, we did the ejection thing, which was also very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Over time, every step of the way, it became, wow, this is so powerful, how do we nerf this? This is so powerful, how do we nerf this? And finally, we reached the point where, because all the power of the trait is in the mech itself, it started to stop feeling like a super mech. It started to feel kind of like a slightly better than normal unit, which feels lame. So this was, make sure the mech itself can still feel like this OP thing, but find a different way to nerf it.
Because with the pilots coming out at full health, that was a big thing. And it became like a crazy reroll comp where it was like you never went above level 7. You tried to 3-star everything.
I remember being a hardcore mech forcer during these times, and it would always be about 3-starring and then getting Shaco, and like you would just build those two.
Yeah, if anything, I'm still sad that the mech, as crazy it would have sounded, more mech pilots probably would have been good. So you at least had ways to mix and match and try
you and your mech pilot. You just wanted your mech pilot spatula. That's
I also
what you
wanted mech pilot spatula, which I look at it still, I'm like, would that have broken the game? I don't know, maybe.
The other thing I'll point out, though, is that letting the mech use items was fun, but probably a flaw because of how that goddamn mana system works with it still. So defensive items on that thing were insane.
Or the design of the spell itself, we could have tried something different. But yeah, something's still not quite right in that space.
Yeah. All right, bunch of balance. Tank changes. This is where we gave tanks passive stats. I think this was just a win. I think we need to do more of this. I think we did more of this in Fates, so this was good.
Yep, I like stat variation. The only thing I see that it makes me a little sad here is the power inflation, right? We're still just like, hey, how do we solve a lot of our problems? Let's add more power to it.
Yeah, and you and I are already talking about this for like set 5 and stuff like that. So, bunch of items. Oh, one of the big item ones to call out here is Mono Battery Sona went away. That was an oopsie of an item. So, God, that item was rough. And then Demolition of Spat went away because that was also a pretty bad trait.
Yeah, that just shouldn't have existed.
All right, we got to keep going. Otherwise, we'll be here forever. All right, 10-13. So now, at this point, we're kind of like doing patch, things here and there. We'll talk about the Galaxies patch, but then we'll also talk about where we are in set 4. So Medium Legends went away. No one cared. Binary Star. Champions can only hold 2 items. Oh, God. Okay. I actually think this Galaxy would have been fine if Cybernetic wasn't a trait.
Yep.
Yeah, I can see that. I think the one thing I started to learn slowly as I was jumping into this world during this time also is when you take things away, they tend to feel worse. And like this one can feel like you're taking something away from your
that is absolutely true. B-Salve said it best when, as he wrapped up his time on Galaxies, he said, Galaxies were not meant to be unique puzzles to solve. They were not meant to be new challenges. They were meant to be sprinkles on the cupcake. And anything that was sprinkles on the cupcake was good. Yeah. And so this one, in that regard, was definitely not sprinkles on the cupcake. This was taking away the frosting. And you're left with a boring-ass dry cupcake. So definitely a miss there.
If I could go back a year and a half and talk about the version of the game that ships with 2 items as the cap, I'd be much more interested.
Yeah.
Particularly because, item power level still feels like it drives a lot of the game, sometimes inappropriately, but how you make it do that less is limited in terms of options. And so this does it a lot, just in a way that feels painful when you are constantly comparing it to the way the game is normally played.
Yeah. Now the other thing to call out is that so that's it for this patch, and there's a bunch of balance stuff, blah blah blah, balance. No one cares. I care, but but the thing to call out here now is Fates. We're getting close to Fates now. Giovanni's been working on it by himself. So this was like, oh crap. So I think at this point we threw you on Fates, B-Salve on Fates, Linda on Fates, Static on, like, we threw everyone on Fates
Yep.
that we had, and it was like, ah!
Yeah, this was because no one else had really been working on it at all, I think, except Giovanni
Yep.
up until this patch. This is also one of the most stark memories I have of, like, the moment this shipped, I stopped thinking about it. Like, which is strange, you know, you actually kind of want people to, you know, like, for example, we had to, like, do some work on Urgot. There was follow-up that needed to happen here, and we didn't allocate time for that follow-up. So, but I remember jumping into Fates, which even then it was already, I mean, we had done a lot of work. Giovanni had gotten very far along. I mean, the whole paper structure existed, and a decent amount of the content was
Right, but like we hadn't play
so,
tested once, right?
well, yeah, we hadn't play tested, and anyone who was jumping on had to kind of learn about it, right?
Yeah.
They had to kind of go backwards and start to understand, like, where are we at? How can I help? Where do we need the most help? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. Now, TJ, from your perspective too, because again, you just jumped into this role, and you see the situation you were in. What are you thinking?
I mean, at first, I remember we had these conversations where I was like, oh no, Galaxies, why are Galaxies taking up so much time? Like, I was like, where can we just pull people from to make Fates happen?
Oh, right, because you wanted me to stop doing Galaxies altogether.
Yeah, and I remember, like, I wouldn't say we butted heads, we were like, we should just stop doing them, and then eventually we came up with the solution of like, hey, let's, like, find easy to do Galaxies to make sure we can put people onto Fates. But I just remember jumping into this role and like, holy crap, we don't know if we can even make it. I remember talking to our production, or our delivery lead, Xavier, and he's like, we hardly have as much time as we had for set 3. We're trying to ship a whole new set, the same amount of stuff we have in it, while also doing Galaxies. And this is also when we started to have conversations of like, how do we make the TFT team bigger? Because we know that we could be successful. So it was a stressful time to jump into this.
Well, yeah, because that was the thing. With Rise of the Elements, Riot wasn't really like, let's invest in this because it's kind of going, eh. But with Galaxies, it was like, we can do this. We need people. Yeah.
Yep.
We'll talk about some of the Galaxy stuff, but yeah, so anyway, we're kind of like panicking at this point. But again, at least we're all there in the office together, working through this together. Oh, shit! We're not, and that's what's making this crazy, that we're actually doing this from home, too. Yep. All right, 10-14. Okay, I have to talk about 10. This is when we're actually going to talk about balance. Because if I get one screw-up this year, this is my screw-up. This is my big screw-up of 2020. Would you agree with that, Witty?
This is a rough patch.
This is a rough patch. Because again, I'll say our focus is a bit split, you know, and we're panicking on things, which is an excuse. But at the time, Darkstar was struggling, and I made the mistake. And again, we don't have a ton of testing and things like that. But I'm like, okay, let's buff the Darkstar units. No one's using these champions. It shouldn't be a problem. The reality is, no one had learned how to use the champions. They weren't actually that bad. But it was just like players hadn't discovered it. And so buffing them all at once was insanely idiotic, but I did it. And some of these buffs, like, some of these were crazy. But, this is a vacation patch too, right?
Yes.
Oh, God!
It's all one patch.
Oh, my God. Okay.
I joined. And I was like, Mort, you gotta take time off. Don't worry about it.
Because I hadn't taken time off since I joined the TFT team. So this was my first vacation since I joined the TFT team. And I remember, so here's what happened. I go on vacation. This patch is locked. I'm doing my PvE stream on Sunday. And I'm like, Syndra's busted as shit. Holy crap. And I message you like Monday. I'm like, yo, Syndra's busted as shit. You gotta get ready to hotfix this fast. And you're like, stop working, go on vacation.
Yeah. I was like, shut up, Mark. But I did go immediately after that to go get Syndra hotfix. I remember we changed that one.
Yeah.
The shitty part about that one is that one never made it to China. So Syndra stayed strong.
Oh, yeah, for a freaking 2 weeks. My God.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, the lesson here is not more don't take vacation. No. But, yeah, this is my vote for worst patch of 2020, for sure.
Because immediately after we hotfixed Syndra, Jarvan was everywhere.
And Jarvan needed like 3 more. Like, Jarvan almost got back to where he was before this state and was still a good champion, which again kind of proves that like players just hadn't discovered it yet, and I hadn't let it happen.
Yep.
Well, there's just, I mean, we talk about a few things. One is small changes are always big on TFT. Like that 20 mana, my goodness, does that change how that pattern operates?
Yep.
You mix that with items, right? Like you're gonna put generally 3 completed items on 2 champions, and a champion going from not worth to put items on to worth makes them suddenly feel extremely more powerful than they were, right?
That's
No one
true.
was putting anything on Jarvan
That's
until this
true.
patch, and now you were putting your Warmogs and your
Yep.
Bramble Vest and your whatever the hell, and now he's casting 20 times a fight.
Yeah. There were games where we were seeing all 29 Jarvans out of the pool by 2-6. Like, it was bad.
Yep, if you saw Jarvan, you took him. I remember you could even just roll all your gold early just to get an early Jarvan because it was worth it. It was crazy.
Yeah.
10-point J4.
Yeah, exactly. And then to top it all off, I mean, at least we added a new fun galaxy. Oh, wait, no we didn't. We added fucking Dwarf Planet, which was the Mech Galaxy.
Yep. Nara was surprisingly better there. Yeah. Teemo.
Yeah. AoEs became much higher value. We also had to go with the cheapest production solution of basically like
gray out the back
out
row. Yeah.
the hexes, which
Yep.
I mean, I'll talk about this because I like to. There's something about the smaller board that did have upside, but the biggest part of that upside was the camera was more zoomed in, and you got to appreciate the combats. So getting the smaller board without any of that was. Ugh.
Yep, for sure. So yeah, like I said, this is my vote for shittiest patch of 2020. So, and then we spent the next few patches kind of cleaning it up. So let's jump to 10.15. Look, there's a picture of Jarvan at the top of the page. But yep, kind of cleaning that up. Reworked Galactic Armory here, which I think was a big success. Galactic Armory was like hella fun from that point on. We also added Plunder Planet, which I admit I was really negative on, but actually turned out just fine because, again, it was sprinkles, so ended up fine.
Sprinkles, and unlike like Star Cluster, we spent a lot of time on exactly the distribution of that
B-Salve
gold.
worked hard on that, yeah.
Right? It was great. It was a well-controlled experience, so...
Yeah, B-Salve worked it so that, like, basically the longer you went without getting gold, the more that would come in, so, like, you would catch up pretty quick, and it was a pretty evenly distributed, which was really well done. Yeah. TJ, anything on your mind at this point?
No, I mean, actually around this time too, this is not something players would know, but it would be great to even mention. We completely, during Set 4's development, changed our direction around this time. We were going for more of like a what is the right word? Warring Kingdoms vibe. And in fact, the name of the set was called either Kingdoms or Journeys. We were leaning, right, Witty?
Yeah, Journeys, but we had talked about Kingdoms a lot.
Yeah, and I remember chatting with the art team and wanting to pivot it. And like, it was painful to pivot. Like, I was just joining the role. People were like, why are you changing everything?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. I feel like we should change it to this more fates and like to this like very vibrant and bright thing. And I don't even know if that was the best decision, but that's something that kind of had.
It was. Spoiler, it was. Yeah. And then at this point also, so Witty, I know you're not the Set 4 lead, Giovanni is, but you took on the mechanic.
Yes. We had to do kind of initial development of the commander mechanic, which later got renamed to Chosen. And so I was spending time trying to understand Galaxies, like what we felt had worked and not worked, how much we wanted to, because it's a lot of people's minds. The set mechanic for Set 4 was just going to be Galaxies, but different Galaxies. Is what people were talking about, and I was really not on that page. I think this would be something very different. Let's try a different experiment. We also frankly, we wanted something that we didn't have to produce a new 1 to 2 things every patch, and so something that could be more sustainable. So yeah, I was working a lot on Chosen at this time.
Now, the original version, if I recall, was 5 units were chosen at the start of the game, and those units all got +1 trait. Is that right?
Yep, that was it. And again, that was kind of like Galaxies, right? Where like every game up front will tell you this thing is different. We play tested that, not good. As kind of as you'd imagine. These 5 champions, play them. It does not make even though it's different every game, is not a super enjoyable experience. So we then deconstructed a lot of the inspiration. Honestly, was just Lux in Set 2. That was a good experience. How could we expand that system to the whole game?
Yeah, cool. We'll talk about that more. All right, moving on, 1016. So this is where we're definitely like starting to kind of wrap up Galaxies. We're knee deep in Fates. We're like crunching to get Fates out. I think at this point, most of the designers aren't sleeping. No, it's an exaggeration. It's not that bad. But we're definitely working hard. Let's see. We removed Star Cluster and we added Salvage World. Probably the hardest galaxy. So this is the one where as soon as you sold a champion, the items broke apart.
Yeah.
I just don't remember playing with this very much, to be honest.
Yeah.
At this point, it was so Fates focused.
Yep. Oh, here's another fun one for you, Witty. As announced on the Riot Games site, we're all taking some AFK time next week for rest and recovery. That means patch 1017 will be smaller than normal. What was the TFT team doing at this week?
Yeah, the design team did not take this week off. Just to be honest, we didn't. It wasn't because someone like forced us to. It was not TJ being like, you must continue to work despite this thing. It was, we have this cool set, but we got a lot of work to do. I'd rather be getting this done than like thinking about it for a week while I'm being forced to take vacation. And everyone was extremely gracious, like, you will get the time, we'll make it up to you.
And we did. We all got the time. So, but that's funny.
I don't want to just thinking about people who might be watching this video and seeing like game industry crunch as a big topic. The takeaway here should not be that Riot Games is a crunchy company.
Agreed.
It is not by a country mile. We still just don't quite get our timelines and personnel perfect though, and that can create moments of sometimes you just got to get it done. Yeah,
I mean, TJ, you're the product manager. What's your take on this?
This was honestly, I feel bad. Honestly, I wish there was a world where we created more time. Back to what we were talking about earlier, somehow. It's not actually possible. That's the thing I deep down wish during that time. But I think this was the most pivotal point in learning, like, what does it actually take to make a set? So for the next time, we're, like, well prepared. And it's always been a topic of conversation moving forward. It's like, how much time do we need and how many people do we need to do it?
Yeah.
But during this time, I was like, oh, no, they're working over the weekend. I never feeling so bad. And like we mentioned, we made sure, like, hey, voluntarily, if we want to do this, it's up to you all. Like, you let us know, we'll give you the time back. Also, the big thing we learned too was don't put a set or mid-set release right near a break. Because, like, no matter what, people aren't going to rest. Like, they're mentally going to think about, when I'm back from work, we got a weekend, we got to ship this set. And, like, that's, you want people to be,
so
like,
I'm joking because I know the circumstances here, but TJ, don't put a mid-set near break. How's that working? How's that working?
Same thing.
I'm kidding, of course, because I know why we're here, but that's really funny. Like everyone's saying here, the thing is we all laugh at it. We all worked hard. We're definitely a little understaffed, but, like, it's not there now. Like, already, the fact right now that we're working on 4.5 and 5 at the same time, like, we've come so far. And that's a crazy thing. This is, like, what? July? August?
Yeah, 5 months ago.
So, like, the fact, again, like, it feels like a year ago to us, but, like, it was only 5 months ago.
Yeah.
All right.
Feel like a very long time.
The
other thing
go ahead.
to talk about, I think this was also a very strong stretch. We had this, like, really terrible patch with 10.J4, but then pretty much the rest, my memory was the rest of the patches were great. Like, we suddenly flipped it 180 degrees and had great balance.
1016 was good. We fixed it. Like, 1016 was one of the best patches of 2020. Yep. That's the crazy thing. Like, I definitely got my shit together. So, okay, 2 more things I wanted to touch on for this one. One, we released some little legends here.
These ones were our first time trying to play into, like, a theme of the legends, and they surprisingly did pretty well. They're not going to do as well as when we launch a set, but players really love the theme, especially the Pengu and the Hushtail. They were great on brand for those little legends and or tie-ins to the Spirit Blossom event happening at that time.
I wish we could do something a little more where, like, your Pengu felt like it was upgrading to this, not like it was a separate Pengu. But like, at some point we'll get there. So
one day.
The other thing I want to talk about here is Galaxies, because at this point, this is where it's like, well, now we have to give up on a bunch of cool Galaxies we want to do. Because B-Salve definitely had some cool ideas that we had to throw away. The one I'll always highlight, because it was my favorite, we play tested it, and it was fun, but we never shipped it, was the items sometimes show up in the shop for 8 gold. Remember that, Witty?
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah, that was a fun one, but unfortunately we just didn't get the UI time. There was just no way with everything we were doing to Fates.
And more of that, like, exactly how does that work, right? Because pure random is not going to play well, so how is it distributed?
He had it to a good point where it was like you saw every item once before you saw it again, which was really nice. But yeah, we didn't quite get it there. So, okay, so then we have 10.17, last patch. The only thing, because this small patch, balance was actually good. So we did some really small adjustments here. As you can see, the patch is really tiny. The one thing I want to highlight here is the new Galaxy, which was Manatee's Delight. Do you remember this conversation, TJ?
Manatee's Delight.
Oh no, sorry. Never mind. That's the next one. So actually, I've got my patches one off here. I'm thinking Manatee's Delight was just everyone gets a spatula. That's just one of our easy budget ones. Yeah. But yeah, everything else here was fine. Patch changes were small, so not much to talk about here. All right, 10.18. This is the one I wanted to talk about. So this was Big Bang. Do you remember our conversation around Big Bang?
Yep. It was basically like, how can we do the simplest thing possible this time? Because the whole team, even VSAP, was like, how do we just make them help out with Fates? And I was like, well, what if... I can't remember who brought it up. Was it you or VSAP? But like, what if we just made 3 together?
It was definitely... So this was... I don't remember what I was working on, but you were talking to me and you're like, we're just not going to ship Galaxies for the last 2.
Yeah.
And I'm like, excuse me? Come on. We can be creative here. What's like the most creative but least cost thing we could do? And my answer was, these 3 things already work. Fuck it, let's do them all. And I think it turned out pretty good. Those were fun games.
Yeah, I remember hearing that idea. I was like, oh, that's a good idea. Sounds free. I like free.
Yeah. God, this patch is really small. Holy crap. It's like Mordekaiser, Ezreal, Cassiopeia. So yeah, balance was in a good state.
At the end of the day, I don't know how many people like played a lot of this patch because Fates went to PBE and it was popular on PBE.
Oh yeah.
People wanted to play.
Didn't we see our numbers drop? Like, what was it? What X%? It was a large percent.
Yeah. I remember, actually, a good call out, but I remember coming into work this day, or not, opening my computer from my bed a couple feet away this day, and being like, yeah. I was like, where the fuck did our players go? Because like I like making sure like players are playing the game. Like, where the fuck did they go? And I was freaking out. I was like, did this patch like kill them? Did they hate it? And like, there's nothing in this patch.
Big Bang Galaxy ruined the game.
Yeah, I was like, fucking more big. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it was. They went to PBE, which was the first time. Like most of the time for TFT, some players would go play PBE, but this time a lot of them went to PBE because they were hyped about Fates.
Yeah, so that was cool. Okay, last thing to talk about with Galaxies. You guys don't have this page up, but I'm going to pull it up here. This was the TFT Galaxies Championship.
Oh, yeah.
We actually had the tournament. KC Double 61 won. It was kind of fun to watch. And honestly, look, Galaxies Esports, I think we can all agree, was a collective clusterfuck. Does that sound about right?
Yep.
Whether it be 10 eggs or signups or qualifiers or whatever, we got some room to go. But watching the finals on a good balanced patch was fun. That was fun.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, including myself, were really surprised by how many people wanted to watch the finals, how great they turned out. Of course, so many things we can do better, but I really showed that, like, hey, we could make this a great experience for people to watch.
Yeah, the video from China where they all joined in, that was pretty cool.
I just personally remember to get the context is because I was on the broadcast on one of the days.
Oh, right.
But at that point, I had not been thinking about Galaxies for months. Yeah. I was so focused on Fates that was on PBE as well. And for some players, this was also, they were playing PBE, like the timing was awkward.
The timing was awkward, yeah.
They were ready to close the door on Galaxies. It was a little difficult to try to put myself back into the Galaxies mentality when Fates was so close.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, the only other thing from Galaxies I think worth touching on was the Korea song. I should have touched it at the beginning. Was it Dunga Dunga?
Dunga?
Oh, what a good song.
That was top tier.
But yeah, from my perspective, that just came out of nowhere. Like one day, there's just like a YouTube
Yeah.
link from the team channel that's like, check out this great thing. I'm like, this
Yeah.
thing is amazing.
It really was.
Yeah, but our teams in China and Korea have this like habit of doing this amazing thing. They're like, hey, we made this video. We're gonna launch it in a week. What do you think? I'm like, amazing. This is great.
Yeah.
And like they love TFT so much over there that they invest the time to make these amazing assets, and we
That
use
was
them
awesome.
locally.
Okay, so that's it for Galaxies. We've only been at this an hour and a half. Jesus. All right, patch
It's a
10
long year.
It's a long year. Patch 1019, Fates launches. Okay, couple things. First off, TJ, this is your first set as kind of the product manager. Expectations, where did we put this compared to Galaxies? Like, we were like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, we didn't invest as much as we did Galaxies as like from marketing side as well as from like the team's from that side. So we were like, oh, it's not going to bring as many players back. It's not going to have that many new players. It won't be like a set 2, but it won't be a set 3. Lo and behold, I woke up that morning like, what the? So many people are playing today, and when we were like so excited because like we saw in PvE they were excited. We know how much that was going to transfer to actual live, and it was crazy. Like the hype for Fates was out of this world.
Yep. Nice. Okay, so obviously lots of champions, things like that. Oh, here's another one you get to talk about, TJ. The Little Legends. Did they do okay?
This is the best series of Little Legends we've ever made, hands down. Chonk was a huge part
No,
of
wait,
it.
are you just saying that subjectively, or are you saying like
objectively and subjectively as it like Chonk's just great. But objectively, like each one of them was amazing. One of the best themselves, and Chonk, of course, blew it out of the water. Across the globe, people love Chonk. Panda Chonk, B Chonk, every version of Chonk, people just absolutely loved them.
I'm an Umbra guy, but I'm just edgy like that.
It's an Austin meme.
I mean, they're super high quality, but synergize that with landing at the start of the set when you're the most excited, when you come back, when you're ready to buy something, and being on the same theme is like, yeah, that's just what players want. So,
yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
For sure. Star Shards, those came out, which I think, from what I understand, players were much happier to be able to get the little legend they want. Is that correct?
Yeah, one of the biggest goal of Star Shards was to increase agency of getting the legend you want and make people happier when they buy the legends, and it achieved that. It wasn't actually like trying to make more money. That was the primary goal, and players loved it.
Sweet. The arenas, which I think, again, really awesome arenas. I think we're still learning about interactables, but like the arenas were really good.
Yep, just like the legends, these are best performing yet thematically, and like the stuff that happens in the game. It was a great job by the team.
Yep. Rank changes, I'm not going to spend time on those. Bunch of system changes, champions, blah, blah, blah. There's one big thing I wanted to touch on here, though, which was the Chosen mechanic. Because I remember conversations about 2 to 3 weeks before we launched where a lot of our superiors were like, this Chosen mechanic seems really complicated. Should we just cut it? Should we just not ship it? Or maybe ship it like later, like mid-set? You remember those conversations, TJ?
I do. I even had to put together like a doc of like what happened if players hate it, like what should we do, what should be our fallback plans, if they love it, what would we do to double down. Like it was, there's a lot of skepticism and excitement going into Chosen. But at the end of the day, players from all across the world love Chosen.
Woody, any thoughts here as the person who pushed
well,
it?
I remember, I think I was substantially, kind of to what you were talking about earlier, shielded from those conversations as the person primarily working on it. From my perspective, we were iterating like up until the end, basically, like trying to figure out mostly distribution. I mean, that was the big question. With some questions around complexity as well, right? Like it was later on that we did the whole they get stats, but those stats are different depending on the champion, but that's something that's technically hidden, that kind of stuff. But I mean, I was excited by Chosen the whole time. I saw pretty early in playtesting the upside, which is just kind of how I design. It's, hey, people will be nervous and potentially angry or frustrated by things, but if you're also getting healthy amounts of excitement, challenge, something that feels like long-term and sustainable as well, which is something we were looking for, especially with Chosen, right? We want this to be something you play 100 games on and are still finding new circumstances. So yeah, it was fun to work on.
Yeah. The one thing I'll touch on was that, like, I knew initially it was going to be fine because, like you said, our playtests were going well. It was doing what we had. The long term was always what I was a little nervous on, was just like, how does this feel in 3 months? You know, and that's the part I was always nervous on. And it's funny because, like, a month after we launched Chosen, people were like, this is the new standard. It's going to be in every set. And I'm like, I don't know about that one. And now here we are, like, 4 months later, and it's like, yeah, I don't think this is going to be the new standard. But it definitely nailed it for a set mechanic. I think this sets the bar for a set mechanic, for sure.
Yeah, and that gets back to, well, this might be a compelling experience for 100 games, but we have people who 4 months in have played 300 games or 500 games, and
no,
at that point,
Witty, the number is at 1,100 right now. If you like, I'm actually going to do this on screen so people can see this. If you go to, like, LOL chess, and of course it's not going to load here. There we go. You hit leaderboards, and you go to Korea, and where's this of challenger players? Oh, look, there's somebody at 1221, 1252, 1203, 1346. So
people play a lot of TFT, and Chosen, admittedly, was supposed to be 100 games, very deep, 100-game compelling experience. It definitely does not hold up when you've played. I see, you see these conversations online where it's like, here's all the problems with Chosen because it's, solved. I never make any decisions. I know exactly what to do. It's like, yeah, you kind of probably have. You probably haven't perfectly solved it, but you've got a pretty good sense of Chosen to ignore, when to buy them, when not to buy them. But that was because you've played it a few hundred times and you've started to figure it out.
Yep. Cool. All right. So patch 1020. Now, the other crazy thing is we kind of launched in a decent balanced state. Now, it was kind of there because, like, everything was overpowered, and so it was like, who had the biggest cannon? It didn't really matter. But over time, we started to lower the power of those cannons, and as we did that unevenly, it kind of left us in a spot where balance, perception-wise, started getting worse and worse each patch. Plus, people were starting to learn what the Chosen mechanic did. So over times here, you actually kind of see our patch. I think our patch quality kind of went down from launch state. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I definitely agree.
And this is also where, some people will be adamant about, like, hey, if you just take TFT and you only make small changes and you tend to nerf things, things will just be fine. And it's like,
no.
I think this is kind of the stretch that proves that that's not really true either.
Yeah.
Because the game is constantly changing when we're not changing it. Because players are learning it, learning how to, really get the fine details. And so, arguably one of the easiest times to balance is going to be the very beginning and then the very end once you have a lot of, like, practice and understanding under your belt, and the middle is always going to be a bit rough.
We launched the new combat panel, which was cool, although as cool as it is and as many players ask for it, I don't think it gets used that much.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's cool. Bunch of changes. Fortune got buffed because Fortune is always going to be funny for me because it's just like, keep cranking that gold, keep cranking those moments. Otherwise, nothing too crazy in here. Okay, 1021. Is this War Week? I think 1021 might be War Week. Yep, 1021's War Week.
Yeah.
I'll also wind back, actually, because this is as we're talking about, like, what's going on behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah.
Stages is, for the first time, in a good way, I was already working on set 5. Basically right after Fates shipped, with Julie, another one of our designers.
Our newer designers who've been hired because the team size is increasing.
Exactly. So, already my memories of these patches are going to start getting fuzzier because my head's in set 5 space.
Yep. So that's going on. And Giovanni's already working on 4.5 along with Linda. And then this is actually the first time, by the way, 1020 and 1021 are the first time I'm not in charge of live anymore. Look at this. You're applauding. What the shit? Okay, actually, no. For real, why are you applauding there? Just so players understand why you're applauding there.
This is actually one of the biggest times where, one, Mort can focus on all of TFT as the design lead, which is super important to me and something I really cared about. But two, we were hiring designers and other disciplines to come help the team, and like we were able to do that. And that's why it was really exciting for me. The thing that you mentioned, I think that Wittrock mentioned, is what actually made me the most happy during this time, was starting set 5, starting 4.5, and kicking off a live design pod.
Yeah, you don't actually want your design lead of the whole team to be the person who's like micro in charge of balance patches. Like, that's an important thing that they should be aware of and very invested in. But like a healthy team for a game like this needs to have a more broad looking with the design lead.
Now I'll admit some guilt here, because part of me loves the job and loves the puzzle. So there's a little bit of like this on my shoulder there. But part of that was also, as we talked about, not half an hour ago, was who the hell else was going to do it? So we actually have a balanced team, which is great. But yeah, this was War Week. Now, the thing I'll say about War Week is War Week was bad. The balance was bad, no question. But this also proves how much better we're getting at responding. And I think we responded in a week pretty quickly. It was like actually 6 days. And for any other game to fix things that quickly, I just don't know of any other game out there that responds that quick. So
I remember that we started. This was when we actually started accounting for B patches too, just in case. We were like, hey, let's just save time just in case we need a B patch, so that, like Mark mentioned, we can be faster. And this was a great example of it.
So bit of a rough patch. Maybe the second roughest patch of the set. Maybe not. There might be some earlier Galaxy ones I'm forgetting. But definitely a rough patch. Ranked rewards went out. Bunch of balance stuff. Cultist is proving to be a bit of a balance trick. Things like that. Bugs, but all right, moving on. 1022. 1022 was also another rough patch. I think this was the start of the reign of Talon. So Talon starting to become a bit of an issue. Chalice as well. Ari was also a bit of an issue in here at this point. Otherwise, nothing too crazy in the patch side. Yeah, nothing too crazy here. Anything on this patch you guys want to talk about?
No, it's pretty tame. I remember it was after War Week.
Yep. But again, we're still struggling with Talon at this point. 1023, again, still struggling with Talon. He shows up on the bug fix, and he had to be micro patched also, so he was B patched again. Little Legends here. So we got some KDA Little Legends. Any thoughts on these, TJ?
Yeah, we did True Damage last year, so we thought, hey, let's try KDA this time. But we learned a lot from True Damage, which was, the aesthetic doesn't fit Little Legends too well. What if we leaned into the champions to be versions of them, but as Little Legends? And we also learned doesn't work too well either. There are some great ones in here that players actually liked. I'll just mention the most favorite, the fan favorite, is Hushtail.
Yeah, I was about to say Hushtail probably.
Yeah, that one worked pretty well. But I think a lot of the other ones, I wouldn't say they fell flat, but it is really important that the skin or the theme that we give to them actually matches the Little Legend, just like Hushtail does. Because Ari and a Hushtail actually are very similar. Some of the others didn't actually meet that goal or that target.
Yep, makes sense. Some more balance changes. This is also where we had to nerf Aphelios. I think Aphelios is probably the one I'm probably the harshest to the sets pod on, just because it was like B-Salve was probably the most vocal about before we shipped that Aphelios was going to be a bit of a nightmare, especially for a 2 cost. I think that ended up playing to be true. Does that sound about right, Witty?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is like many layers of pattern issues that are not easily resolvable here. Relationship to items, relationship to trait structure. At the end of the day, also just doesn't feel like a 2 cost at all. Like I think Salve said, probably would have made a great 5 cost, and I think he's about right. So
4 cost, but
4. I'm closer to 4, but I'm like, hey, you add one other layer of spice, I could see a 5 cost version of this. Like so
Witty, tell me if you agree with this, because over these past few patches, like 1021, 1022, 1023, you're seeing things like Adept changes, Xin Zhao rework, Aphelios rework, Divine rework, things like that. All of this sounds like kind of what we talked about before, which was Fates came in hot. And this is all sort of what happens when a set comes in hot and is a little understaffed, is like, it's not quite to the like 100% level you'd hope for. It's sitting at like a nice solid 90. So does that sound about right?
Yeah. Because like hey, by the time I'll pick on Aphelios some more. By the time those Aphelios conversations were really happening, I can say, hey, just make him a 4-cost, but anyone who's thought about or looked at TFT set design meaningfully, that is not an easy thing to do.
Yep.
And gets harder the more other designs get solidified and locked in. So it's leaving yourself enough time to, when you get into, because you gotta play test stuff, right? Figure out what's fun, figure out what's working, what's not. And when you say, hey, we like this Aphelios, he's cool, but man, I wish he could be a 4-cost, being able to turn that, because that's a wish right now. On live, it's like, we absolutely can't do that. We have to deal with his 2-cost version. But if we're 3 months before a set is shipping, cool, let's playtest for a week where Aphelios is a 4-cost, and he's not Moonlight, and whatever other 5 things you need to do to make that work exist. So
cool. Okay, so then 1024. This is where balance finally starts to feel good again. We're finally getting into a decent spot at this point. One of the things we had to do to make that happen was we basically kind of took Talon out of the meta, almost deleted him as a champion, if you will. Sometimes happens, but honestly, one thing being slightly underpowered is better than one thing being slightly overpowered. This was the other... Okay, so this was the other one, actually. TJ, I'd love you to tell this from not my point of view, but this was the... Let's change all the systems because of the 4-1 roll down patch. Any thoughts here?
I remember when you first brought it up, mentally I was like, more scope. We're about to ship a mid-set, but then also you mentioned, and I looked at a lot of players talking about how like the game feels the same. How do we actually change the feeling of the game, which is very different from the actual balance of the game, if that makes sense. It's like, how do you play through a match versus what is actually strong? And I remember seeing, and like as a player, noticing like that kind of feels bad. Everyone was just 4-1 roll down, they figured out, chosen. So then I was like, actually, I agree with Mort. We should probably make some system changes that the team had already had ideas of what they would be.
Yeah. I'll be honest, there are 2 points in my TFT career that I've been nervous that like if they went poorly, it's like the imposter syndrome would kick in and I'm actually a fraud and terrible at my job. The first was when we redid the loot system all the way back in set 1. You remember that, Witty?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This was the second one. This one, I was like, I did not sleep well. I was so nervous for this because it was like, I'm going out on a limb by saying we have to change the systems. Changing systems mid-set can do a lot of harm to our player base. They could churn, they could quit. And if after the changes the game was in a worse state, what a phony I would be, right? Like, what the hell? You made it worse than the 4-1 roll down? What the shit? So I was nervous. And again, I think any good designer worth their salt, Witty, maybe you can tell me I'm wrong here, but is going to be nervous before they release something. So...
Oh yeah. It's scary, especially and this comes up. There's a lot of things to unpack here, but timing of something like this, right? We're still figuring out because it continues to kind of be a pipe dream that hey, maybe we could just stop touching the systems. Every time we think that that's true,
know.
It just is not
true.
Is not true. The other piece is okay. Well, when we have like the game getting to different solve states, there is a question of how aggressively we are supposed to unsolve that, right? Because we know we can do it, right? Like, if the optimal way to play is always roll down on 4-1, we can make that worse. We can make other things more relevant to do. But it's going to feel just, I'd say player damage in, like, set 1 and 2 was an example for me when we were trying to solve problems there, but it felt whiplashy, right? Yeah. It was like, oh God, I don't know how much I'm going to take this round or whatever. So you have to figure out when to do it and how to do it so it doesn't feel like the designers are just saying, hey, that you are getting good at this game, stop that. Now you need to be bad again. And now I don't even know what the game is, type feeling.
That's a good point. I will say I definitely put in the extra mile here. I don't know if you ever saw this, TJ, but like the amount of PBE testing I did, running that tournament with Soju and the other high-level players, just to make sure it got its proper like high-level testing.
Definitely did. I think that I trust more a lot, and it even built even more trust. Like I'm pretty sure this is gonna be fine, but to everyone's point, system changes also always give me a heart attack sometimes because it's. I think what is actually the trickiest part too is there's such a range of players who play TFT, from like the 1,000 game player to
Yeah.
like plays 10 games a set, and those 10 games a set players are usually the most sensitive to
Yep.
things like this because they just copy streamers and then they learn one way to play, and once you change that, they feel like they suck, and sometimes they'll just quit.
Yeah.
But it ended up going really well.
Yeah, thank God. Thank God. And we finally ended up in a pretty good balance state. I think the only thing really egregious, did we end up B-patching it? Yeah, we did have to B-patch quite a few things, but like it wasn't bad. It was like Zed became this bit of a nightmare. The Yone change was a bit of an overbuff, things like that. But yeah. And so then that leads us into our last patch, 1025, which honestly, like I said, with things being in a good state, was relatively light. We touched a bunch of things very small. But the nice thing here is we went into Christmas break, which the longest, I think this will be the longest we've ever not touched the game. Because even last Christmas break, we were kind of like aggressively B-patching it in 1024 before we left. This will be like 4 weeks with no changes, which is insane.
It's crazy.
We'll see if anything interesting comes of that too, both in terms of like how the meta develops and just how players react to something like that. Obviously, it's much easier to do when we think the game is in a pretty good spot, right? Like if the game was actively in a bad spot, this would feel terrible.
Yep.
But how we can handle the times where the game feels good, and how players react to that, because that's the other risk too, is how, I don't want to quite say how fun is a balanced game, right? Because that kind of implies like we should be intentionally unbalancing it, which I definitely don't believe. But how fun is the process in TFT of the deeper levels of solving, and how much natural meta progression and shifting can we get out of an untouched game is a question we've never been able to answer, because
if you compare it to like Melee, which hasn't been touched in years, but you see the shifting. Yep. Okay, so last topic then, because obviously again we go back to behind the scenes. 4.5 now. We basically worked up until the last day of break. And I'm not even going to say it's done. It's ready for PBE. Still have some work to do. I wouldn't call it balanced by any means. But we've been playtesting 4.5. Witty, any thoughts there?
Yeah, I think we're excited to do another swing at a mid set. I think this will give us now we'll have done 2 mid sets and can start to think about what mid sets are again, because they're not identical by any means, and players probably already are kind of seeing that by seeing how many champions we're rotating out, and the types of ways we're, like 3.5 never shifted traits on any champion, for example. But this has like trait shifting.
The other thing I'll touch on is, and at the time of this video, you don't know what I'm talking about yet, so I can't say what it is. But as we were developing 3.5, there was definitely we're learning more about mid-set expansions, and it feels like something's missing. So the team kind of came together at the last minute and added something we think is turning out pretty cool so far. We'll see what players end up thinking about it, but it's a really good example of like, and players don't know about this yet. Even in the things going around, this hasn't come out yet. So
yeah, one big surprise.
Yeah, so hopefully that lands well. And then the other crazy thing is that, so all this time, Witty, you've been working on set 5. How far away are we from playtesting set 5?
Not too far. Sometime in January is the plan. So we're and that's really important to us. Again, I'll reinforce. We think playtesting is extremely important, and we playtest a lot, because that's how you find the issues. That's how you figure out what's fun, what's working, what's not. So playtest.
All right, so that brings us to the end of 2020 on our break. So holy shit, what a year. But again, at least we were all there in the office together, able to coach. Oh shit, we weren't. Any final thoughts or things you want to say on 2020? Start with you, TJ.
Shoot, I'm first. I want to think about it, but
okay, fine. Witty, you go first. Haha.
Yeah, it's been an incredible year. Obviously, like, I feel good about the year, but that's because players felt good about the year. And so just sometimes it's hard to kind of feel that, and it's even harder when working from home world, right? Like, and so I'm just happy that I'm happy that people like TFT and apparently want to keep playing it. So as long as they do, I'm happy to make stuff.
Nice. All right, TJ, your turn.
Yeah, I think 2020 was a roller coaster for the world around us, but also for TFT. Like, just having this talk with you all made me realize, like, in the beginning of 2020, like, we didn't know what the future of TFT was.
Mm-hmm.
But we've, like, players have told us, and we have proven that, like, TFT has legs. People love the game, and that's made me so happy throughout the years. And we've done a lot of things wrong, and we've done a lot of things right, and I'm so excited now that we can actually invest in this product even more than we have in the past. And I honestly think, despite doing a lot of this from home, we did an amazing job. Like, I'm super proud of what we've done and what the team have done, and I'm super thankful for everyone who's played and enjoyed TFT.
Yeah. I think for me, the big thing is if you look at the start of 2020, I'm not going to say it's the worst state TFT's ever been in, but like it'll be looked back on as like the dark ages of TFT. And ever since everything we talked about showed the game on just like an upward trajectory, right? Like Galaxies and mobile and you know, some esports happening even though they're rough, and like we're crunching but like we're still building better sets, and like everything points to the game getting bigger and better and bigger and better. And obviously TJ, you and I have been working on 2021, 2022, and everything's looking bigger and better and bigger and better. And so like I'm kind of like freaking pumped, and I want to hit the fast forward button. But like it's gonna be so good, and I'm like excited for it. So
Only a very small number of people will get this reference, but I really told myself for Rise of the Elements that our first expansion was not going to be an Arabian Nights.
Yeah.
It turned out to be an Arabian Nights. I was so sad.
Oh, it's so true. It's so true. Yeah. So yeah, again, I'm just the other crazy thing is like how far our team has come. Like we are a solid team, and like we're at that point now where like everyone feels like really key and really part of the team. It's gonna keep growing. So I don't know. I'm really happy with where TFT is going, and I'm happy with the player base. And it's been a hell of a year. I probably took 10 years off my life, but it's all worth it. So it's all good. So okay, any final thoughts before I wrap it up? We good? We've only been talking for 2 hours, so. But again, at least we were in the office talking together. So.
It's my office now.
Yeah. All right. So hopefully you enjoyed this. If you made it the whole 2 hours, honestly, salutes to you, because it was just the rambling of three insane people talking about TFT. But thanks for joining. We hope you've enjoyed TFT in 2020. On behalf of the entire TFT team, which is way more than just the three of us, but not that many people, we thank you. And we hope you stick around for 2021 and everything in the future. So until next year, take it easy.